Anyway, my name is Dorothy Pilarski, and I'm the founder of CatholicMomsGroup.com and DynamicWomenFaith.com. We work in partnership with the Archdiocese of Toronto in helping parishes start mothers groups. And of course, when COVID broke out, we couldn't have our face-to-face meetings anymore. And so we started hosting virtual meetings. We do have parish-based virtual meetings, and we do have this ministry meeting, which is significantly different from a regular meeting. I should say that because our regular meetings is a little bit more prayerful, and we don't have comedian Dorothy there all the time. I also wanted to say hello, Andrea. Andrea, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Andrea Szrejber, and the way it's spelled, you probably never know that's how you pronounce it. But so I'm based out of Kitchener, Ontario, in Canada, and I run a mother's ministry for the Waterloo region, based out of St. Anthony Daniel Parish in Kitchener. So I just wanted to share today some of the different tips and tricks to still get your head around Lent, even though we just started it. How can you still make the most of it for you and your kids?
Good. So it's really, really wonderful to have you here, Andrea. And I'm also very happy to welcome Maureen Berry from Guelph, Lucy Pignatello from Mississauga. It's fantastic to have you all here. So I am going to take a minute just to share one or two slides about our ministry. And if you be patient with me, sometimes my technological savvy isn't always that great, but here we go. So don't you love that statue of our Blessed Mother? She's right here behind me. So we're on a mission to revive the vocation of motherhood. Many women in today's day and age, they kind of see motherhood as just a series of tasks, like 101 things that you have to do. And our ministry is on a mission to remind moms that it's not just a series of tasks, that there's a sacred element, and that the relationship between the mother and child is sacred. It needs to be protected. It needs to be nurtured. And our ministry often turns daily, multiple times a day, to our Blessed Mother, because our Blessed Mother, she wants to help us be better mothers. Who would be better to take your lead? Like if you're gonna have a mentor in terms of being a mother, like why not our Blessed Mother? She was the mother of Jesus, and a lot of moms just don't even have like a good rock solid relationship with our Blessed Mother, and they're missing so much supernatural power, and they're missing so many graces, and they're missing so much consolation. So we also exist to encourage moms, to get to know our Blessed Mother, because she's a good friend to have. She's a good mom to have. And so we host mothers groups. We help parishes start mothers groups. We also host an annual conference, the Dynamic Women of Faith Conference, and that is coming up 1 week today. And so we help parishes start different kinds of mothers groups. There are mothers groups that are mostly just moms, and it's an evening group. Then we also teach or start moms and tots groups. We've got curriculum for both the mothers and tots group and the mothers groups. And we also help parishes start virtual a virtual mothers group meeting such as this, although the mothers group meeting is significantly different because we all can see one another and we all get to know one another. This is more webinar format. So so we start 3 types of mothers groups: moms alone, mothers and tots, or virtual. We have a variety of different tools that we have created. We have 2 major publications. One is How to Start a Mothers Group. The other one is a 52-week study guide. We have a mothers group starter kit that if you order the kit, you'll have everything that you need in that kit to run a mother's group for well more than a year. And we also host a workshop, how to start a mother's group workshop. And recently we hosted that workshop virtually, and our ministry is starting 2 new mothers groups smack in the middle of the pandemic. And so Midday Moms, these sessions on Thursday afternoons, we've been hosting them ever since COVID broke out, because we wanted moms to know that we love you, we're here from you, and we're here to support you. So I just want to say hello, Michelle. Hi, Dorothy. I've told a couple of moms about the conference, although they've brought up that the time frame of the conference is not listed on the flyer. You're right. It's not listed on the flyer. Also, busy young moms don't know if they can tune in the whole day, so they're asking if there is access to of the speakers and purchase tickets, of course. So just quickly about the conference, because I don't want to take a lot of time talking about it, but the agenda, the detailed agenda is going out on Saturday morning, and it'll go to everybody. It'll go to, if you're on our email distribution list, you're going to get a copy of that agenda. We're starting at 9 a.m. And the Sisters of Life are praying the rosary starting at 9 a.m. But anyway, the full agenda is coming to you. We also have, you're the first to hear, I'm so excited, we have 2 additional speakers. We have Sister Helena Burns is going to be speaking, and so is Father Thomas Lynch. And Father Thomas Lynch is the priest of Priests for Life, and he's going to give a testimony of how the vocation of motherhood affected his vocation of priesthood. And so I know, I'm just like, wow. Like, anyway, so thank you for your patience. I keep on telling our ministry, I keep on telling everybody, our ministry is extremely, extremely small, like very small. You know, we do have, 35 some odd mothers groups, but they're all volunteers. And anyway, I'm going on and on and on and on. And that's not why we're here. But thanks, Michelle, for asking about the conference. And, you don't want to miss it. And, if you can't watch the whole thing, you're going to have the agenda, and you can say to yourself, okay, I want to hear, Father Thomas Lynch, and he's at this time. And so I'll tune in at that time. So you don't have to, you don't have to stay, like, you're on Zoom. No one's going to know if you leave. So I promise I won't be checking. We don't have drones at your houses. Anyway, Andrea, I wanted to extend a warm welcome to you. Like, Andrea, you've actually attended 1 or 2 of the Dynamic Women of Faith conferences, is that right? Or 1? Or?
Oh yeah, like for the past 5-6 years. Like it's been such an inspiration. And like, I'm from the Diocese of Hamilton, and we don't have a women's conference. So when a couple of women told me about this, I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And like, I just kept coming back every year after year. Like, the speakers are amazing. I come away filled with the Holy Spirit, on fire to serve my family. It's incredible. So it's you're doing something amazing, Dorothy.
Yeah, well, and what you're doing now is taking that fire to your region. Andrea's done an incredible job in the Kitchener-Waterloo area. And I love her to pieces, and she's a constant source of inspiration to me. And, the one thing I was saying to Andrea before we started was, like, when you have good, solid Catholic girlfriends, your life changes, and your life changes dramatically, because, like, something happens, and you have women in your life that want you to become holy, and they want your kids to become holy, and they're not catty. Anyway, I've been a part of, a mother's ministry for, over 24 years, and it changed the trajectory of my life. It just changed it completely, because when I was on the 100% corporate track, like, women are stabbing you in the back, women are hooking up with guys, and you're kind of thinking, what the hell is this? Like, And then all of a sudden, when you find a bunch of Catholic women that are, you just, I feel like so at home. So anyway, sorry, Andrea. So Andrea, what can we do to make Lent more meaningful for our children?
Okay, so I think first it comes to understanding what Lent is and the season. And I think sometimes it can be so overwhelming, especially when historically, when you look at fasting in the church and we're like, we're going to eat cabbage soup all for 40 days and we're only going to eat bread. Um, and it can seem like, whoa, that's not attractive at all. I'm not up for that, like, especially being in lockdown. And so I think explaining to our kids, just starting off with the liturgical colors, right? Like our church, just like we have our earthly seasons, the church moves along in seasons to help us grow in the spiritual life. So I made these little vestments out of felt, and I just did a cutout. Like, you'd be surprised how easy felt is to cut. And I just glued gun some some ribbon we get from the dollar store. And so we look at Mass to be like, what vestment is Father wearing? Well, he's wearing purple today. Well, what does purple mean? And talking about like how purple is a time of preparing and nurturing and waiting for something incredible to happen. And I think when we start off telling our children about the Passion and the Easter story, giving that high level understanding, all the other pieces come together. So what I want to do is maybe walk through Holy Week and use that as a basis to tie in some of these other tangible day-to-day activities you could do in your home. So first to begin, and I mean, you can use like storybook Bibles, or I mean, whatever Bible you'll read is the right Bible for you. So what I do is I'll usually talk to the kids, start off with Spy Wednesday, and about how Judas betrayed Jesus for 30 coins. And so I found at Dollar Tree, because there's all these kind of St. Patrick stuff going on with gold coins. And so I found it was a pack of 30. So what you do is I just hide it around the house. And this is something you can do if you are limited with places to go. And the kids love it. Like, they like to see who can get the most kind of coins. So we start with that. And then we'll go through Holy Thursday. And talking about how when Jesus washed the feet of the apostles, it's an act of service. It's an emptying of ourselves. So even, oopsie daisy, oh my goodness, even like as a family, you can do your own washing of the feet, and talking about like how can we serve each other in our family, just as Jesus did. And now I don't know if Dorothy, if many of the mothers are familiar with Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. I'm certainly not an expert in it, but I want to get certified, because I think it's really been a game changer in the way helping children approach the faith, to learn about it, to experience it, to make it real for them. And one of the things that they do is they use tools such as peg dolls to facilitate the gospel message. And so what I have here, it's kind of hard to see, but I have this Last Supper set of the 12 apostles. And like, you can get these at Michael's. They're you don't need to be an artist to create them. But I just got, it's like comes in a 4-pack, and you just use acrylic paint and then just Mod Podge them after. But my daughter and my son, like, they use these continually throughout the year. So if you're looking for something to connect the gospel message, these are a great tool to create. So after that, we go into the Passion story. And like, I know the Stations of the Cross are, those little booklets are really great tools. I know like Holy Heroes, they have an audio version of it. It's like an audio dramatization. But what I did is I got these little, I cut the picture out of the booklet. It's kind of hard to see here, but at the dollar store, they have these little, they're just like magnets. So you just put it in like a 4x6,
Oh, wow.
and then it sticks to the fridge. So throughout Lent, you can just keep them on the fridge, and like your kids can doodle over it and wipe it off. And then you can interchange. You could do like the mysteries of the rosary, for example. That's another way that you could use it. And then what I found is using pictures. You could use rocks too, or wooden blocks, is different symbols throughout the Passion. So Palm Sunday, or the dice that the soldiers drew for Jesus's cloak, or how Peter denied Jesus 3 times. And I was kind of impressed I could draw a chicken. I just sidebar.
Impressive.
Yeah, and for Holy Thursday. So it's I find like children, they really relate when they have these tangible objects that you model it by reading the gospel, using these, and then they go away on their own to explore and see how the Holy Spirit is nudging them towards using these tools. And then I think just one of the last things, maybe have a break or get into some of the day-to-day items, is talking about how Jesus was a real person. He walked to this earth. And I think it seems silly for us, but for children to make that connection is so important in their faith development. So what I did is, you can go to the library, like get maps of Jerusalem. This is a cookbook, but it has some pictures throughout, so you can see like this is where Jesus lived. Like he's, this is some of the food that he ate. And then there's also, if you have building blocks, like this is a Melissa and Doug Castle set, but build your own Jerusalem. Like these are Jenga blocks, right? Like build this, use these to build a city around it. These are cake stands from Wilton's, from Michael's, like for a temple. Like use whatever you have around the house to create like a physical representation of the life of Jesus.
Yeah, so moms, if you have any ideas too that you want to share in the chat box, go ahead. You can share some of your ideas. One thing too that I know it's impossible right now, but I guess my heart was always kind of a little bit broken when I would go to the Stations of the Cross and I would see like so few families with their children, right? Because if you make that commitment to go every Friday, when the churches are open, to the Stations of the Cross, you're instilling in them a very sacred tradition, right? And children very naturally like the church because there's these statues, there's these stained windows, there's a lot of place to kind of run around, and there's a lot of people that pay attention to them. And if you go during for Stations of the Cross, because there's so few people there, you don't have to become as self-conscious about their presence, right? And then the other thing is too that you're getting them in the habit of reading the booklet and asking them to follow along. And if they don't understand, that's okay. They're going to grow in understanding, and what you're doing is building that tradition. I know that our there's a parish, St. Maximilian Kolbe, not too far away from me, and you could go in there for prayer. So if your parishes are open for prayer, why not take your 2 kids or 3 kids or whatever and do the stations together, and somebody, like I know Monica, when she was little, she used to like to pile up all the hymnals, like 30 of them in a stack, but it's kind of like, well, that's okay, right? Like, I think that sometimes we as mothers, like, we get so angry and then we don't take them to church because we're angry. They're having a blast. They're having a good time. But it's our own, sometimes our own limitations and our lack of patience, right? So if you can, I would encourage you to, take, and you know what I love about what you're doing, Andrea, is you're having conversations with your kids and you have tangible activities. So this is like so cool. Like you're not leaving it to the school or leaving it to the catechist. Like you're talking about Jesus, and that's very, very, very cool. I love I love how you have the Last Supper there. Very cool.
Yeah. No, you're so right, Dorothy. Like I think as mothers, like we really need to take that responsibility. Like we're the ones that are going to impart the faith. And I mean, the schools are doing what you can, and it's really hit and miss with who the teacher is. But yeah, like I think we're really fortunate where we have access to so many amazing printables and tools and resources, that it'd be silly for us not to incorporate this into our home.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I mean, just talking about like some more of the traditional practices along with Stations of the Cross, which is such a beautiful devotion, and definitely encourage, as you said, Dorothy, families to go. I know I've heard some families do like soup and stations every Friday and talk about kind of the acts of charity and sacrifices that they did throughout the week. But one other way a tangible way for children to make the connection is through a crown of thorns. So I got this at Dollar Tree the other day, this wreath, and then I just stuck toothpicks in it. I don't necessarily if I recommend this for little ones, maybe for a bit older kids, but once if a child has done an act of charity or made a sacrifice, you can encourage them to take a toothpick out and put it in a jar. And what it symbolizes is consoling the heart of Jesus, so that hopefully by the end of Lent, it'll be empty, and it will be a non crown of thorns.
That's such a beautiful practice, eh? That we do have the power to console Jesus by our sacrifices and by our good acts. That's a beautiful, beautiful tradition.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I know I've seen it other ways where like you get a jar and like you put a bean in it or a rock, and then when Easter comes, it turns into jelly beans. So that's like there's lots of ways to go about it. And then for little ones, if you don't feel comfortable with them playing around with toothpicks, you could even get like a little garden pod. So throughout Lent, water it so that when Easter grows, you'll have flowers. And how making the connection with during Lent, we need to nurture our faith. We need to be patient and wait for good things to come.
Well, there's one mom here asking a question. So good to incorporate these activities when children are young. I was raised with listening to readings and family prayer. I try to do the same with my teens, but they roll their eyes. How can I update what I'm doing to be more interesting with the new generation? Well, there's a couple of different things. Like I think that one thing that I did that I didn't know it was going to work for me, and it kind of worked for me by accident, was that whenever the kids questioned something about the Catholic faith, because they had lots of questions, is I always had the Catechism of the Catholic Church handy. And I say, you know what, I really don't know what that answer is. And let's flip through the catechism and let's find out. Or, I'd say, and then, or else sometimes I would say, oh, we're going to go to Mass next week. And, I love talking to Father after Mass. Let's brainstorm some questions that we're going to ask him after Mass. So what that does too is it builds relationship between the teen and the priest. It also acknowledges that me as mom, I don't know everything, but just because I don't know everything doesn't mean I don't have access to that information. And so, just to give you an example, my son now is 23, and I can't tell you how many times he said to me, "Oh, I was reading the Catholic Catechism the other day because I wasn't sure about this," and I was like, "What?" Like, so he would Google it. Right? So I think kind of like modeling the fact that there are books around. The other thing is too, Paula, is, and you're very smart, because like a lot of mothers use the same tactics for every age. And yes, the peg doll is great when they're this age, but obviously a peg doll isn't going to work for a 16-year-old. And we as mothers have to evolve and change, right? So, one thing as they start getting older is maybe getting them involved in a youth group so that they meet other people. Another thing could be, obviously not now, but we did have our kids go to the Franciscan University of Steubenville for their youth retreats, right? Which is another thing to do. The other thing I want to encourage each of you, if you haven't, if you don't own these yet, I will come to your house and check to see if you've got them. But our family just loved. I don't know if you're familiar with what's his name, Father
Lavasic or
Father Lavashik. So these little books,
yes.
My first prayer book, the Holy Rosary, the Promises of the Sacred Heart. Look how old that one is. Angels, God's Messengers, the Holy Eucharist, my first prayer book. And so when we go to Mass, I'd be like, okay, well, you're getting older now. And as you're older, like, you need to be praying. So here's your prayer book, right? There's also a Stations of the Cross. Like, I love this one, prayers for every day. Like, sometimes I prefer praying out of this than I do out of the adults, because the prayers, like, even for myself personally, because they're so simple and they're so beautiful. So I would encourage spiritual reading as well. And let's pretend you're reading a book and you're reading St. Teresa of Avila's book, and there's a paragraph that just boing, right? And if your kids are in close by, you could say, oh, I'm reading this book by St. Teresa of Avila, and there's this one sentence, and what do you think? And then, like, your kids come around you, you read the one sentence, and then you know what I mean? So you're not going to have them read the whole book, but as teens, you can engage them in that way. Anyway, sorry for going on it here. Okay, Maureen, great ideas for young moms out there. I remember laminated placemats or pictures of my children's artwork, like painted cross, school billboard sign. Spiritual ladies group I belong to, we plan to donate a meal again to the local drop-in center, volunteering at the food bank. Yeah, we live very close to Dr. Simone's warehouse, a youth retreat. So yes, and so, all of these little activities. Sorry, Andrea, I keep on interrupting you.
No, that's okay. I think that's a good segue, Dorothy. Like, because you're right, it's experiences that help children make that connection with the faith, of faith and works. Right? We're not just learning catechism all day. So, like, I came up with this idea, and there's different variations I've seen going on in Pinterest and sources like Catholic Icing. But this one, it's like a 3 planter thing, a Dollarama. And I found these little clips to label them. So what I do with praise, so every night I do bedtime prayers with the kid, and part of that is intention prayers. So what I've done is every day we'll pick who in our family or in our community to pray for that night. And then with fasting, I mean, depending on the age, and maybe you can brainstorm this as a family. So it could be like no screen time after 5, or avoid whining today. I mean, like, that's come on. I think that's something we all challenge. But then with give, I think this is really where the experience comes in, and tying in lessons like, I found this vintage book on the corporal works of mercy, and talking about like what does that look like for a child. So I brainstormed some different things like, what is this one? Put a piece of clothing in the donation box. Um, put some non-perishable foods in the bin to give to St. Vincent de Paul. So, I mean, even though we can't do as much volunteering like in soup kitchens and shelters, we can still give things and drop them off. So I think for a child or even a teen to physically make that connection can be huge. And I saw there was a comment about laminated placemats, and I came across this one at Amazon. I mean, this can be another way to talk about why we don't eat meat on Fridays, and get the kids involved in meal planning, something other than noodles. Um, so, I mean, I have this bin I got from IKEA of all kinds of felt food, and this is like sidebar. If you're looking into imaginary play, felt is great. You just throw it in the wash if it gets dirty. Um, so talking about like cold-blooded animals, and anyways, they can put on their plate what they can think. So I mean, really, like all of these things are just tools to facilitate, right, and to open up the conversations, as you said, Dorothy. Um, I know just in regards to when children become teens, and I mean, we need to adapt the way that we impart the faith. I've also heard about going along with the child's cues. So, for example, if your child is really into like medieval things or old history, like taking them to gorgeous churches and buildings with all those architectural details, exposing them to beauty that way, um, can be another meaningful experience to make that faith meaningful.
And I always say too, to like, I think for probably, gosh, I know this isn't maybe for everybody, but I don't know about you with like, younger mom, when you have younger children, like sometimes your nights are exhausting, and sometimes you wake up and the dishes are still there from yesterday because you didn't sleep all night and you had a fight with somebody and there's a baby screaming. And so, and so sometimes it's just extremely overwhelming being a mom. And I know that my husband too, he traveled a lot. He was often away on business. So, very often my kids would often get their earaches or to visit to emergency when he was on a business trip. And so I don't know where this came from, but I was given a grace, I think a grace from God, because I think as moms, we often just think that we're not enough, right? The house isn't clean enough. We haven't taught them enough. The food isn't healthy enough. And I don't know if any of you moms kind of battle that, that I'm not enough. And I was given this God-given grace when the kids were very little. And I don't know whether it was a voice or a sensing, or I don't know what it was, but it was this thing that, well, Dorothy, if the only thing you do every single day is take your two little ones to mass, that's enough. You've done everything. You don't need to do anything else. And I was like, what? Really? And so I decided to like experiment with that. And these were when the kids were, very little. And I think basically from the day they were born till, gosh, like JK, that 5 or 6 years, they were taken by me to daily mass. And I don't know, when I centered my entire day around mass, everything else seemed to fall in place, because then after mass, I'd go to Metro and I'd pick up a chicken, or I'd be at mass and then someone would say something, the priest, that would encourage me. And so, again, I know it's hard now, but whenever you're doing these things with your children, it's always really important too to add an element of fun to it, right? So this is what I love about all the things that you're doing, because, you know, you're making the faith like so much fun. And I used to take my kids to the airport for mass, and there was this little train that went between the two terminals. And I would say to them, okay, we're going to go to the mass. It's really short. And then if you guys behave at mass, we're going to take a ride on the train between the terminals. And they would just be so excited, right? Or, yeah. So like yes, you want to pass down the faith, right? And pray about whether or not, you know, you can, you know, make even short visits to Eucharistic adoration, right? And then like sometimes we would go to noon mass, and then there'd be a lady there that we knew, and then she would say, I want to treat all of you to a chocolate sundae after the mass, right? And so, you know, just to try to always include an element of fun, because it's all this like serious, you got to pray and Jesus suffered and you got to make sacrifices. If it's all kind of and we don't focus on the resurrection, you know, and the joy, then, you know, it could be difficult in passing the faith down. So try to, you know, I always say, try to include an element of fun. I keep on interrupting you. I'm sorry.
No, I think that this is a great, like back and forth. I think like it's, I think it's pretty incredible, because like it just makes me think of like, oh yeah, how can I add on to that? Because like just talking about like making mass fun for kids, and not like racking your brain, just trying to like keep them down. I came across like this diaper caddy. It has like 6 different compartments. So in here, like I'll have, when I bring the kids to mass, there's this like awesome magnetic church thing with different magnets, so like they can watch, observe what Father's doing, what the lector's doing. So that's definitely like one go-to that you can use throughout the year. But then I also love, I don't know if you've heard about these, they're called shining light dolls. They come in a plush, and they're kind of like a vinyl material, but like great even for infants. To talk about the saints every day, have them part of their regular toys. And they come with like this suit.
Someone's asking about that magnetic book.
Oh yes. Yeah, it's called by We Believers, WEE. I think I saw it on Amazon a while back. So this may be something that can do a quick search. I'm trying to see if I can show you the manufacturer. But another great way to support this ministry, right? By going to the Catholic Moms group and ordering from Amazon, if you're going to get it anyways. And then what are some, oh yeah, these are another thing I came across from Modern Catholic Goods. They're ABC Catholic cards. So these are great, like you just show, they're different components of the faith. So angel, baptism, Holy Spirit. It's kind of hard to show with the, I would put the link, it's called Just Love Prince, but they're laminated. So even if they get dirty, you just wipe it off. So this is great, like just to expose children to the different aspects of the faith, and to get them to ask questions and to point it out to where they see in the church.
Yeah, this is, and maybe too, Andrea, at one point when you have the time, you can make a list of those things, and then I can send it out to. And you know what I really like, Andrea, too, is I really like that whatever you're bringing to Mass is something related to the faith, right?
Yes.
Because I remember once I went to Mass, and I don't know, it was kind of heartbreaking, because the mom and dad brought for their daughter like this very, very huge brand new doll that she was dressed, the doll was dressed immaculately, and the daughter spent the entire Mass playing with the doll. And I don't want to judge anyone, because that's not what we're here for, but you know, we're trying to pass down the faith, and it's important not to expect too little of our children, right? Like that while they're in church, that, you know, for that 45 minutes that they be focused. You know, that's why I love these little books by Father Lavashik, because, okay, if let's say they couldn't follow the mass, but then they would be sitting there and they'd be flipping these pictures. And so at least, there's a component of the faith, right? Because if a child's going to spend 45 minutes playing with cars, well, then they haven't really had like a spiritual encounter. And I think that the catechesis of the Good Shepherd, they do a really, really good job of educating moms that, well, in fact, children, their spiritual encounters are often deeper than ours, and our faith could grow dramatically based on us responding to them, right? And so we don't want to kind of get rid of the mystical at mass by giving them fire engines and dolls, and to keep a mystical and a faith-filled component to it, if you can, right?
Well, for sure. And I think like kids, like they take our cues, right? So if Father's doing the epiclesis and then he does it, lifts the host, and then we go like, that's Jesus. This Jesus is here. Like he loves you. Tell him he loves you. Like they get excited. Like I know I try to bring my toddler son to daily mass. And as soon as we go in, he looks to the tabernacle and he says, Jesus, the angels, the angels. And then I'll look to the statue of the Holy Family. He's like, Mama Mary, Saint Joseph. Like he's 2, right? So you can imagine if you're creating these foundations, what are children going to be receptive to down the road? So yeah, you're right. Like never, don't be afraid like that it's too boring or it's not with the times. I know. I think it was a couple of years ago. My daughter was just starting with the Good Shepherd program, and maybe they were learning about the Annunciation. But my daughter asked a question like, Mom, if Saint Joseph wasn't Jesus's biological father, then why is he still his father? So you start to, like, wow. Even a 4-year-old, right?
Right.
So I don't know about you, but I'm excited to celebrate the Solemnity of Saint Joseph coming up later this month. Like even at Home Sense, I got a little figure of the Holy Family, and like just getting figures around the house, like a hammer and nails and lilies, and talking about like how Saint Joseph is our guardian and protector, like doing dress up, get a brown pillowcase, right? How he worked hard to provide for the Holy Family, right? It's like kids love dress up.
So out of a pillowcase you made, let's see what you made there.
Okay, so basically I just cut up 3 holes. So a hole in the for the head, and this is great for All Saints too, right? Like whatever, just a hole for the head, and they fit kids perfectly, and then a hole on each side for the arm. And then you can do the same with habits. Like just get a headband and get a white pillowcase and a black pillowcase or blue or whatever order it is. I wish you could do like an All Saints episode down the road, because it's there's so many fun ideas out there.
And the other thing too that we used to do, and even more during Lent, I'm just going to put it in here, is CCC of America. They have saints videos that are actually, they're like Disney quality, right? And so kids, oh, can I watch a video? Can I watch a video? I'll be like, sure. I give them a saints video, right? And then if they wanted to watch some other video, I'd say, first we got to do the saints video, right? And I think they've got like 12 or 15 saints. And, we bought the entire set more than once, because in my mind, these years when children are little really are the time to kind of, build familiarity with the saints, with the symbols. I love how you have like so many things in your home that, it's very clear and very obvious that your home is a Catholic home. You've got the Last Supper there, right there, which is fantastic. So I would also, another thing that you could do is these saints videos, is to introduce them, during the saints. And then Paula Marshall also says, Formed has amazing movies for kids and resources for Lent. Some parishes have subscriptions for their parishioners. Yes, Formed is fantastic. And I know Paola, actually, she used to be the Mothers Group leader at our Mothers Group in Port Credit, St. Christopher's. And her family used to go on these family retreats, right? Now, I don't know whether that would have flown in my home, but some families go on family retreats to a cottage or to a camp for a week. And of course, COVID is limiting us right now. And I know I sound like a broken record, but when my son was, I don't know, I think he was 7 or 8, I don't know. And he goes, Mom, like, why are Catholics so weird? And so if your child says something like that, right, it's really important to invite conversation with him. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting that you think, Catholics are weird. Like, why do you think Catholics are weird? And he goes, oh, when I go to so-and-so's house, she won't allow us to have any juice. It's all water all the time. And, they can never have any dessert because like they're so like strict. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's maybe one thing, but that's maybe one thing that, Mrs. So-and-so does, but maybe she wants her kids like to be healthy. Maybe it's not to do with the fact that, she's Catholic. And then he's like, well, okay. And then I'm going, well, why else are they weird? Right. And he goes, like a lot of them like wear really long skirts and they don't like wear kind of like hipster kind of, and I'm like, yeah, I guess we do know quite a few of those ladies with the really long skirts. And so then we would have a conversation about that. But the thing that I got from that conversation, my son was at 7 years old, very intelligently, he was able to articulate what he perceived as being weird about the Catholics that he met in our community, right? Because we did go to a private independent school, and it did draw some very fundamental Orthodox conservative Catholics. And so the point I'm trying to make here is it's so important to allow that conversation and to ask, why, and to listen and not to get, mad and to react. And then like after we had the conversation and he listed the 7 things, I always say I should write a blog post about it. It's sort of like, I'm like, well, you know what, on a certain level, he's right. And we don't want to come across as, the mother that's like wearing the scapular and has a badge of, Eucharistic adoration on her and, is screaming out, Jesus, Jesus all the time. Like the kids need to feel that they belong to a normal family, right? And that we fit in with other families, that it's not kind of this, like not every coloring book and not every excursion and, not everything, has to be related to our faith. And so like, sometimes I would make it a point to do things that I knew would wow my kids. And they'd go like, oh, I'm really happy to belong to this family. And one of those things when they were in their teens, I'm like, okay, we did it all on points, but we're going to Los Angeles, right? And we're going to Hollywood. And there was something, like, because it's like all of a sudden now here you are in Malibu, and then you're finding the local church in Malibu, and you're going shopping in Beverly Hills. But, like, and so we really want to kind of, and I know I'm not telling everybody to go to Los Angeles, but wherever, and it was all on points, but wherever you can, like, how can I bring joy to my kids? And how can I, bring love to them? And how can I make them feel that, we're not weird because we're Catholic, and this is one of the reasons why I love Midday Moms, and I love meeting other mothers so that all other mothers can see, right? That we're normal people that, that love our Lord. Anyway, sorry, I know I go on and on too much sometimes.
No, you're so right, Dorothy. Like I think there needs to be that balance, right? And because you're right, like to the secular world, it's like we can look like a bunch of weirdos if all we're doing is looks like we live in a monastery, right? Like I know with my daughter, like she really looks forward to planning her birthday party every year. Well, I mean, all kids are obsessed with their birthdays, right? But like that becomes our little project. So like if we come across a little knickknack for decorations, um, like we just get really excited about it. So I mean, of course, like I do integrate a lot of these
Yes,
toys with
yes, yes,
the
yeah,
regular toys.
yeah, yeah.
But no, you're so right, right? It needs to find that balance. We're in the world, but not of the world. Um, so yeah, I think just take some discernment about what activities, what friends, what products do you want in your home, for sure.
Yeah, and Roseanne Lista says here, we used to have Catholic movie nights for kids pre-COVID at Our Lady of Peace, and the kids really, really enjoyed it. I encourage you too to visit, Salt and Light TV, because they have great DVDs, and I know that the confirmation program that they had at the parish was like minimalistic, and so then I purchased their youth DVD set, and so then they saw kind of like other kids, Catholics their age, that were open about the faith. So the other thing too, I don't know how I missed this, but I love having holy water at home. And so every morning, when the kids were little, I would bless them with holy water. I bless you in the name of the Father and the Son. And they're like, Mommy, Mommy, can I bless you? And then they would bless me. And then before they go to sleep, I bless you in the name of the Father. And then, then Michael or Monica would laugh and say, oh, am I holy now? And I said, oh, almost, right? So the use of sacramentals, and of course, morning prayer, evening prayer, and grace before meals. Yeah, so you've got something there to show us?
Oh yeah, I was just saying. So we had like a parish sacramental swap a couple years ago, and one of the things that I got was like a little holy water font. And you're so right. Like it's great to have by the door, and even though they don't have holy water fonts filled at the churches, you can still go to the office to ask, like bring a little jar and ask for it to be filled. Um, so I just have like a little one on hand. Um, but yeah, like this is one of the traditions that we really need to get back in because there's so many graces. I mean, like even Saint Teresa of Avila said that like Satan hates holy water, so it's like go sprinkle, like oh, put on your windows, put on your doors, like make it rain. Like
I always say when you're cooking dinner for your husband, put in a little bit of holy water.
Yeah, on the coffee, yeah.
A little blessed salt.
Doesn't hurt, right?
You're blessed salt for teenagers, like, or like sometimes, if even not too long ago, my son was going on a trip to Europe a couple of years ago. I'm like putting a blessed miraculous medal in his backpack, so these sacramentals do have a tremendous amount of power. One thing too I wanted to share with you that I did again when my kids were little, I got a big, big black Bristol board. And then at the bottom of it, I put a picture of Jesus. And then I cut out like a half circle that was yellow. And so I said, okay, in the world, there's a lot of darkness, there's a lot of people, and that when you do a good activity or when you go do a good thing, whether it's a sacrifice, whether it's a prayer, whether it's, a not talking badly about people, I said, you're adding sunshine into the world. So then I cut these yellow strips and I said, okay, what did you do today that was good? And then I would write it on the yellow strip throughout Lent. And so this black Bristol board became like this shining, and I said that you, by doing these things, by saying the prayers, by going to visit grandma at the hospital, by using holy water, and I would ask them, what good did you do today? And then we'd put it on. And then by the time Easter came, I said, look at all the goodness you've brought into the world. So that was something that, a tradition I really looked forward to every year. Maybe I should try it again.
Yeah, why not, right? It's like you're so right. We need to bring back that joy. Remember, like why are we doing all this for? I know there's the other tradition of like burying the Alleluia. So I know, depending on what part of the world you're from, like can be the ground can be frozen right now. Um, but I have like this. This is a He is Risen banner, but I mean whatever. And then I just put it in a little box, and then you can just like put it in a cabinet up high or under the couch, so that when Easter comes, another way that you can celebrate is to put the banner up, um, and to have that up throughout the Easter season, right? The reason for faith.
Yeah, I know that my cousin Anita Healy, that I don't want to, be, but I know that for like Easter Sunday, like her house is filled with flowers. Like she really, really, so we go from the austere and the dark to flowers and flowers and flowers that, he has risen. Um, so Rosanna Lista is asking, where did you get the holy water font? She's asking.
Well, I got this when there was like a sacramental swap at our parish a couple years ago. But I'm sure like if you go to the Catholic company or do a search on holy water fonts, you'll be able to find some that you can put on your wall. I can try to see if there's a couple of vendors that you can order from.
Yeah, and I find too that often if you talk to your parish priest, that many times when seniors pass away, there's this treasure trove of beautiful prayer cards and prayer books and statues. And, oftentimes their kids don't want it. And so I'm sure if you asked your pastor, he's probably got a couple of holy water fonts in the drawer. So, oh my gosh, it's 3:00. Where did the time go? So Andrea, do you have any kind of closing thoughts or any closing suggestions? Or
I think it's just like don't put, I think comparison is a thief of joy, right? So if you're like, well, I don't have all these Montessori tools, I don't have those fancy flashcards, like don't beat yourself up. Like focus on the gospel. So I mean, if all you can do throughout Lent is focus on the Sunday gospel each week with your children, show them a quick YouTube video, take them to mass, as you said, Dorothy, like that's incredible. Like all of these are add-ons that help facilitate discussions and explore the faith and help you grow.
yeah, and two, like whenever something happens in the news that is a bit remarkable, right? Like let's say, for example, there was that, I forget his name or whatever, but there was that terrible, terrible, terrible situation where that a drunk driver hit a truck or hit a van full of children, and the children were killed.
Yes.
And so as your kids grow older and something like that happens, it's like, okay, Michael, okay, Monica, because they were that age where they're going clubbing, they're going here, they're going there. It's like, I know I sound like an old lady in a broken record, but can you see now why the church considers, being drunk a sin? And like, what is a sin? A sin is when you separate yourself from God by doing things that bring harm to yourself and to others, right? And so how do you think, the driver must have felt? How do you think the mother, must have felt? And so, because like sometimes, there are so many kind of sins that are sins, and a lot of people don't even know that they're sins, and they never get talked about. And like, you can't sit there and say, okay, here are the 32 sins, but you can, with a teenager, give them an examination of conscience at Lent, right? And say, okay, our church is still open on Saturday mornings for the sacrament of reconciliation. So another thing as kids are growing older is to give them an age appropriate examination of conscience, right? And to use common day occurrences, to actually animate, the gospel. So when Monica was about 10, she was being bullied, by this one girl on the bus at whatever. And, he used to always say, well, I wonder what's going on with so-and-so. I wonder, like, maybe we, should pray for her. Maybe there's something going on that we don't know about. And, and so I did two things. We prayed for this girl that was bullying her. And then we found out, later that her mom actually had cancer, right? And that the daughter's reaction to Monica was related to all the stress that she had at home. So we prayed for this girl, but then another thing that we did, I said, like, Monica, I know that you're, like she was trying to get her to move off of a seat off the bus and trying to make her sit at the back, and and Monica was really, really afraid of her. And it was almost like unusually afraid, right? And I'm like, Monica, every time you look at this girl and you say to her, no, I'm not moving, I'm sitting right here, I deserve this spot just like anybody else, right? Because we practiced the wording. I said, every time you say those words and you say it with love and you say it with, not with sass, but you say it kindly. I said, every time you do that this week on the bus, every time you do that, I'm gonna give you $5.
People do anything for money. It's such.
Yeah, I know that some people are like, oh my gosh, you didn't really do that, did you? And I said, well, you know what? I could go pay a psychologist $120 an hour to talk about why is Monica afraid to stand up for herself, right? Like I could pay a psychologist, and it's okay for me to pay the psychologist and go for these meetings, but it's not okay to give her an incentive. And you know what? She said about 10 times that week, and she claimed her spot on the bus. I said, so long as you do it with love, as long as you do it with a smile on your face, and so long as you're telling the truth, we're good. Because we have to help our girls sometimes, build, some confidence in these, because girls we could do an entirely different session on this. We could do a whole session on how catty girls are to other girls, but that exceeds whatever. But anyway, I think we've covered a lot of different ideas. Andrea, thank you so much. You're such an inspiration to me, and we're so happy that you were able to join us. And I wanted to thank everybody that joined us today. And if you haven't already registered for the Dynamic Women of Faith Conference, we'll see you. We'll see you there. And I always like to end with a song, right? I'm so glad we had this time together, just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just get started, and before you know it, comes a time we have to say so long. Goodbye, everybody. Paula, you mentioned about your daughter with the issues. I've got like 3 really good books that help me with my daughter, so I'll email them to you because I know Paula. Anyway, so thank you, all of you, for joining us today. Really appreciate. Please follow us on Instagram. Please, like us on Facebook, and please, if you find it in your heart, to make a donation. Our ministry depends on them. We have some really exciting news and developments coming up about our ministry, but I can't tell you now, but maybe I'll be ready to tell you about the Dynamic Women of Faith Conference. So that's the next time we'll see one another. So we'll see you at the Dynamic Women of Faith Conference. Okay. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. It was an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.